All right. My next special guest is someone that I've known for quite a long time. I don't even know the date, Robert, but I know it's been for several years, and we've been through different iterations of media and brands. And, while we kind of went like this, we always have kind of stayed in tune with each other. How are you
Yeah.
doing? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. But here's what I like to do when I enter a room. I always like to come on. Uh uh
Hey, all
uh
right. Look,
I'm great.
you bringing the party already. You always bring the party. I can rely on that with you, so I do love
Yeah.
it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I'm great. I cannot complain. I think as we were talking about in the green room, just life circumstances, the transitions, college, kids going to college, high
Yeah.
school, eighth grade, graduations, all of that stuff. And all while trying to be married and run a business and be like human.
Yes.
So,
Just survive and thrive. Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
look, I'm going to read a little bit from your formal bio, but then I
Mhm.
definitely want to hear from you about whatever you feel like the audience needs to know that's not in the bio.
Yeah,
So Robert Kennedy III wants to live in a world where people are no longer afraid to confidently tell their stories. I love that.
yeah.
And they can also eat Reese's peanut butter cups. I didn't read this in advance. For every meal without repercussions. I'm
That's
so
right.
in. I'm
That's
in
right.
on that. His work as a keynote speaker and trainer in the area of leadership communication has led him to work with organizations such as the U.S. Coast Guard, Barnes& and Noble, Panda Restaurant Group, AARP, ComScore, as well as appearances on local networks like Fox 45 and CW24. Gosh, Robert is involved in his community through various boards, including the Association for Talent Development, the Maryland chapter, youth leadership programs, and helping nonprofits conduct mock interviews. He's also a professional member of the National Speakers Association. So I need to welcome you formally to Robert Kennedy, my friend and a video pro.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're I don't know. I guess I'll take on the term pro. We're all trying to learn even more. We kind of get to this space, or we discover a new technology or a new piece of equipment or a new automation or way to do things, and we're like, yay! And then a couple of months later, we find something else, and we're like, yay! And then
No,
you know the
it's
story.
true.
You know the story.
Yes.
So we're always learning. We're always learning.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
What is it that you think people need to know about you, about your background, or about whatever you want to share that's not in the bio that I just read?
Wow. So there's a lot of things. Maybe I'll share a few things. I was originally born on the island of Jamaica. So that's part of my heritage, my background, my perspective, my culture, the lens, the eyes that I bring to different things. I grew up in New York City after that. So from the Bronx, boogie down. And that's kind of the mixture. I spent some time in Canada. My dad I would say was, but he's still working. He's a pastor. So I'm a PK, and so we moved around quite a bit. So I've spent time in Montreal, I've spent time in Toronto, Oshawa, New York City, and now I live in Maryland currently. So yeah,
Wow.
that's my lens, that's my life, and that's the perspective that I bring to the game.
So you have to tell me a little bit about why you started using video for your business, Robert, because I don't know if you were using video at the time that we first met. I can't remember, but
I
but
was, but probably not in as intentional a way. My very first use of video was when I decided to start a podcast. And so my
that's what I
first
remember.
podcast was I started doing it on Google Hangouts.
Yes.
Right?
I think
Yeah.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So this was what year? This is probably about 2013, 2012, 2013. And so that was my first time officially using video as a part of what I was doing in my business. And the reason for the podcast in the first place was kind of one of those life hacks. You want to learn from people who are in spaces where you're not. And
Mm-hmm.
so you ask them, hey, can I interview you for half an hour, or can you come on my podcast? And I had some great interviews. Chris Brogan, Zig Ziglar's son, Tom. Yeah, so a lot of really great personal development, business coach, productivity people. I had a lot of great conversations, and so that was the idea for my business at the time.
When did you decide it was a chance for you, there was an opportunity for you to upgrade? Because right now, let me just say to you, your
Mhm.
show is amazing. The
Thank you.
visuals are amazing. It's very smooth. It's like you have everything together, Robert. I know because I look for these type of things,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I see it and I'm just like, wow, what a production. So when did you decide, okay, you know what, it's time for me to step up my game?
It was really the pandemic that kind of kicked all of that off, because I thought that I was ahead of the game anyway. I don't know that I was paying attention to the video end of things
Yeah.
as much. I had a couple of Logitech C922 cameras.
Yep.
And so that was my webcam. And I had a good mic. I had a Yeti. I was like, let me get my good boom arm and
Mm-hmm.
have my Yeti in the shot and some different things. Let's look professional.
Yep.
And then when the pandemic hit, it was okay, we're home and now we're watching lives all the time and we're on YouTube, and I'm checking out some of the streamers and I'm like, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. There's another layer to this
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yep.
so part of what drove that was my own tech geekiness kind of led me to some of this, but it was also people starting to ask questions like, "Hey, listen, I'm home now. I'm not at work anymore. I'm home now. How can I be better on camera? What's that light you have?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at how I look now, my setup from the beginning of the pandemic till now, it's like totally different. My
Yeah.
microphones are different, cameras are different, lenses are different, lights different, backdrop, all of that
Mm-hmm.
has upgraded since the pandemic. And it's because if I'm going to be on camera more, if I'm going to be on video and on live streams more, I want to make sure that it's at a level or a quality that makes me happy. And it's not just to
Right.
attract eyeballs, but I want to stand out. I don't want to be the same as everybody else. So,
Right. That's awesome.
yeah.
When you decided to switch up your backdrop,
Mhm.
how did you make decisions about what that would look like for you?
Oh, it was just kind of a feel thing at first.
Yep.
I think the very first thing that I saw, I was in a Zoom meeting one time and I saw somebody and they had kind of like a wood backdrop behind them. And I was like, "Are you in a cabin or what's that?" And they said, "No, it's just kind of a backdrop." I said, okay, because this is the time
Yep.
when you're in Zoom and everybody's using the virtual backgrounds, right? And somebody's on
Yes.
in space and their hands, or they got the halo effect, and some other person's on the beach with the wind blowing behind them, and they've got all sorts of crazy. They don't have ears, they don't have shoulders. It's so
They're
so
missing hair on the side of their head.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I saw that and I was kind of like, that's pretty neat. And so I went on Amazon and I started just searching photography backdrops. And so I ultimately got one. And then I was watching something on TV. I don't remember what it was, but then I saw a monitor in the
Mhm.
background. I said, okay, I want that.
I
And
like
so
that.
I set it up so that whenever I do presentations, I got a little clicker here. It's run on a separate computer. So I do presentations. I can
That's
kind of go
fancy.
back. Yeah. So I can go back and forth with some different things. I can bring it forward, etc.
Hmm.
Or one of the things that I use it for sometimes is just branding for my client, right?
Yeah.
So I allow my client to see their logo and their stuff on the on the screen in the back. So I got the monitor running, and then the monitor was here, but I didn't have any. There was nothing on this side. So I said, oh my, I need a little bit of balance. I need a little bit of balance. And so, I
Hmm.
saw lighting, and my son put me on, he had these LED strip lights in his room that
Yes.
he put around his
Yes.
ceiling. And it just kind of, so I saw those, and I had some RGB lights that I actually had on the floor at first that kind of gave me some, so I still have them. Let me see if I can turn that on really quick.
That
Yeah. So
subtle ambience. Yes, I love
yeah,
those too. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
I had one of those. I have like two of those on the floor. Um, but then I got the lights, and then I said, oh, I like that Edison light bulb feel back there. Just a
I
little bit
do.
of ambient accent lighting back there. So just little things, and then of course you got the books. Are you an author, Robert? Why, yes, I am. So,
Take a look at the ta-da. So look,
so
what I hear
yeah.
you saying is that you didn't have a full vision initially, but you started
Mhm.
adding pieces. You saw what you liked.
Yep.
And that's really kind of how I did my own too. I saw
Yep.
things that I liked and then I started piecing things together. So it wasn't just like all of a sudden one day, boom, it's all one
Yeah.
studio. It was
Yeah.
that you were taking ideas and creatively figuring out what you liked and what you didn't like, and that you
Yep.
pulled it all together.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let me ask you this because you seem so smooth. I know that you're smooth. And you have the
Ah,
fancy, you got all the fancy music and you got the fancy lights and the video background and all the things, right? But
yeah.
let me ask you, when you first started doing video, what were some of your biggest roadblocks? What were some of the things that maybe you kind of stumbled on?
I think wanting to have control of a lot of different things
Yeah.
at once, and kind of jumping between different pieces of software, and the microphone is, does my mic sound a certain way? So I think for me it may have been the technical piece, and I didn't stumble over them as in like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I'm overwhelmed. It was like,
Yeah.
ooh, squirrel, ooh, ooh, ooh. So it was just, there was always another thing. So, as you can imagine, some of that got a little bit expensive. I remember in at the end of 2020 when I had a meeting with my bookkeeper and we were going through the expenses for the year. I kind of knew that I'd spent a little bit of money to upgrade some things, but
Yeah.
it's very different when she slides or she sends the document over and she highlights a certain area and you're like,
Right.
right.
Oops.
So but it's, I think that's the biggest thing. Some friends of mine have this term and they call it GAS, gear acquisition syndrome.
Oh, I love it.
so,
I haven't heard that. I'm gonna have to use that.
so they're like, listen, you can buy equipment, you can do all of these things, but you've got to decide, do you actually need it? What is the benefit, what is the intentional use case going to be for
Mhm.
your particular setup,
Yeah.
or do you just have gas?
Do you have gas?
Yeah.
Hilarious. So,
Yeah.
what kind of advice would you give someone who is fairly new to the
Mhm.
video space and they're trying to decide, okay, here's what I actually need in this moment
Mhm.
versus here's what I need to aspire to later
Right.
on?
Right. Well, I mean, in the moment, I'm actually running a challenge right now, and one of the things that I share with my people in my community is start where you are. So the
Yeah.
first challenge or the first roadblock for a lot of us is right here between the ears. We kind of give ourselves a lot of excuses. We rationalize things,
Yes.
and we say, "Oh my gosh, Tanya's background is like fabulous." Right? Oh, I don't have that. Oh, she's got a mic. She sounds so great. When she comes on her show, she's got this intro and it's got
Mm-hmm.
flashing, it's got music.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, your story deserves to be told. Your story deserves a stage. Are you going to wait until you have everything? And here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, you may be the star of your story, but your story is not for you. Your story is for somebody else who's struggling, who needs to be able to navigate through something.
Right.
Your story is
Yes.
meant to save someone. So are you going to wait until you have it all together and therefore deny somebody of the blood transfusion that they need in order to live? Or
Yeah.
are you going to start where you are? And so sometimes what you have is this thing right here.
Mm-hmm. That's
Right?
right.
Yeah. And I
That's
mean,
right.
to be real, you see all these little lenses right here. Right? There's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, right? These things are phenomenal. These things are way better than those digital cameras that you could buy in Best Buy back in the day. So, what do you need to do? Just decide what results you want and start with what you got.
What do you hear from people as one of the biggest roadblocks for them? So I know you have a crowd of folks that follow you and
Mhm.
that watch your videos, and I believe you use Ecamm. I want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that in a second.
Mhm.
But what do you hear from them the most? What's one of the common questions that they ask?
Well, I'll go back to a session that we ran yesterday. One of the things that quite a few people said were that it's like you go live
Mm-hmm.
and you feel rejected because there's nobody that comes on the live.
Yes.
Right? You go
Mm-hmm.
live on Facebook. You finally get up the courage to click go live, and then you look at that little indicator up at the top, and it says zero, and you're like, oh my, they don't like me, oh my god.
Right.
So they're like, Robert, how do I get people on my live? How do I get people on my live? I'm like, listen, here's the challenge for a lot of us. It's like you're in a room shouting that nobody's in, and then you get mad because you're not getting heard.
Right.
So go where you are not just tolerated but appreciated. Where's your tribe? Where's your crew? Where are they hanging out? How can you reach them
Mm-hmm.
and then have messages that would resonate with them? So,
Right.
go to reddit.com, go to quora.com, find out where the questions are being asked that you can answer and start
Mm-hmm.
there. It's too many people that are just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go live on my Facebook profile. And then when nobody listens, you get mad, but those aren't your people.
Right. Those are your friends and your family and people that
Right.
might like. I have an uncle that always pops up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love him, but he is
Yeah.
never going to buy anything from me. He's never
Yeah.
going to need any of my services. I love him. I love that he pops in and I always say hi back, but
Yeah.
that's not my tribe. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to those who are saying there's zero people? You said
Mhm.
find your tribe. So how do you go about doing that? Especially because here's one thing that I'm struggling. I'm not going to say I'm struggling with, but I hear people
Mhm.
struggling with because I'm much more clear that now than I was when
Mhm.
I started, Robert. But
Right.
when you don't have a clear vision of who you want to serve, how
Mm.
do you figure that out? That's a
And
question that a lot of people ask.
well, we complicate that. We
Mm-hmm.
complicate that. And the easiest way for you to find a place to start is this: the person you are best positioned to serve is the person who you used to be. Right. So, what were the things that you struggle with? So, for me, my background is teaching. I was a teacher. I was a high school science teacher for 8 years, and I spent 2 years as an online college faculty in a biology department. Right. Uh, so once I left teaching, my next step was into the world of instructional design and e-learning. So,
Mm-hmm.
can I talk to teachers who are looking to transition? Yes, I can. Can I talk to people who are thinking about curriculum development or course development or want to develop an online course? Yes, I can, because that's what I
Yes.
did. Can I talk to auto mechanics who want to know how to paint their cars better? No, I cannot, because
That's
I
not
don't
my
know.
people.
No, I don't know anything about that. And so a lot of times we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we see Lewis Howes, we see Les Brown, we see all of these people, we see Gary Vaynerchuk, we see all these
Mm-hmm.
people, and we're like, oh my gosh, they're so big, they're influencers. I want to be an influencer too. And then
Yeah.
we're trying to get into that space, and you're trying to be a business coach when you've
Mm-hmm.
never had a business,
Yep.
right? You're trying to do stuff online in spaces that you might want to be in, but you've never actually done it. So you don't have the credibility, number one. You don't know
Yeah.
have the experience behind you to tell the stories. your stories are something else. So start with the stories that you've got. Start with who you were and your journey from there to here, from
I
where you
love that.
were to where you are now.
That's so smart. That's so smart. If when you first started doing video, and let me talk a little bit about Ecamm,
Hmm.
did you start out with a streaming platform or did you just go live? You mentioned, going live from your phone. So
Yeah.
that's often a question that I get asked as well is, well, should I use a third party platform or should I just do native Facebook or native YouTube?
Yeah, so this is such a beautiful thing. I started, as I mentioned, with Google Hangouts. That was like my first thing
Yep.
that I did. When Facebook started to go to do live, I did some Facebook lives just to my personal profile and to my business page from my
Mm-hmm.
phone. Then I found out that I could use Be Live. So at that
Remember
time, I
that.
think it was BeLive.tv. I think that's what
Yep.
it was. So
Mm-hmm.
I used Be Live, and then I was doing some podcast recording, and I did my podcast. I always recorded my podcasts via on video, and I was using Skype at the time. And there was this company that I was looking for how I could record the Skype interview, and I came across this company called Ecamm that had this software called Call Recorder,
I
right? So
remember
and
that.
yeah, and it was a little
Yeah.
integration that went with Skype, and it recorded the Skype interviews both sides, and it came out with it then spit out a couple of different audio tracks, so you would have the guest track and your track, and you could do some post-production after that, etc. And then some years after that, a couple years later, so this is probably around 2015, 2016, they come out with I'm already using Ecamm, I'm already using Be Live. They come out with this software called Ecamm Live, and I
Mm-hmm.
check it out. I'm like, oh my god! And it is a Mac only software. I'm like, oh, that's
Yes.
great. And I start checking it out, and I'm like, that's so cool. And then I put it away, and I never use
What?
it. Right,
Like, this is awesome, squirrel.
right. So I put it away, and then maybe a year later, so now maybe about 2017, I'm like, oh, this software is pretty cool. And so I say, let me not just use the free version. Let me pay for the pro version, which was only at the time like 70 or 80 bucks for the year.
Yep.
So I get it. The next year I'm not using it, but I get it again. The next year I'm not using it, but I get it again. And then the pandemic comes,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm home, and I'm in these groups, and I'm seeing what people are doing. And this is like early March, and I find the Ecamm Live community, and I see all the cool things that they're doing with
Lots of
overlays. I
cool.
mean, before that, my first when I started streaming again, my first thing was StreamYard that I was using. I had moved away from Be Live, and I started using StreamYard. And then I saw
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that I could do with Ecamm, and I'm home, and I'm like, okay, I'm teaching clients, I'm teaching schools at this point. All of my speaking and training gigs in persons were canceled, so let me start doing some other stuff. And so I start using this software, and they're like, okay, we are going to introduce some new things like adding an interview mode to it. We're going to do and they started to do a whole lot of things. And then they said, here's what they said. They said, oh, yeah, in order to get interview mode, you have to have a pro membership. And here's what the pro membership is going to cost. Now, I had already paid for the pro membership when it
Right.
was like 80 bucks. And so I got grandfathered in.
Sweet.
Right? So they're like, yeah, if you're already in, your price is not going to change. Boom.
I
Yeah.
know,
So,
right?
yeah. So so now I'm like, I'm all in. I'm in the Ecamm community. I'm live streaming in there, and the community is phenomenal.
That's
Phenomenal. I
awesome.
won't talk down any of the other streaming software. They all have communities online, but the Ecamm Live community is phenomenal. Very active,
Yeah.
phenomenal community. And I made some great friends in there. And so that's kind of been the journey with Ecamm Live. And I use it pretty much with a lot of things. I'm using it right now. I'm using it right now. Here we go. How about this? Let's show you what I'm doing with Ecamm.
Y-
Hold on.
You have some cool stuff. That's my favorite right there. I love it, Robert. That is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Look at that. That
yeah.
is so
So,
awesome. But look, you didn't just do it just for sake of doing it. Although,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we're geeks. And so we like
yeah.
geeky stuff. We like technology. We like to experiment and get really creative. But
Hmm.
the cool thing that I love about what you're doing and what you're saying is that, again, you saw opportunity
Hmm.
to learn something new that would then get the attention of the people that, especially having been with a
That's it.
background in instructional design, you get attention and you disrupt,
Yeah.
right? So
Pattern
that
disrupts. Yep.
Right, so that people pay attention to your video and not just the video itself, but they're listening to your message and they're seeing, okay, what's coming up next? Because
Mm.
I've been waiting for the dancing guy ever since we started talking, since I knew that you had
Yeah.
him. But it's awesome. And I love that there is diversity because you don't necessarily have to use Ecamm. I don't have a Mac, so I'm not using Ecamm. I use
Right.
Restream for just about everything. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people that use StreamYard. I
Yeah.
think that this is a great time to get into one platform or another and really take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I, because of who I am, I think the squirrel in me, I always want to see how things work together. And it's, I do
Yeah.
that with a lot, like a lot of stuff in my business, not just my streaming software. If I have
Mm-hmm.
if I have an application, my CRM, if I have my QuickBooks or
Mm-hmm.
my financial software, if I have my Asana or our project management software, what does it integrate with? So
Yeah.
if I'm advising people about figuring out automation or systems in
Mm-hmm.
their business, one of the questions I'm always asking or saying, hey, you've got to ask this: what else does it work with? What else
Right.
integrates with it? How can you create a workflow that is seamless with other things that you're using, so you're not jumping from here to there and trying to
Right.
find different bits of information? Can they talk to each other?
Yeah.
So, Ecamm talks to Restream, it talks to StreamYard, it
Mm-hmm.
talks to Zoom. And so it allows me to do some pretty sexy things sometimes. And people are like, hey, how'd you do that? I'm like, yeah.
It was, yeah, it was a secret.
Yeah.
Come and join my class and learn how to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome that you
Yeah.
have these different creative ways of expressing yourself and putting yourself out into the world. And I
Yeah.
just really appreciate that you've taken the time to share a little bit of that with my audience and with my community. So I know some of them are going to be coming over and following. I need to find out where you are. I meant to ask you that before so I could type it in. So
Yeah.
you'll have to tell me how people can find you. But I have one more question.
Yep. Go for it.
What is your favorite purchase related to video? And it may be that you've already shared it.
Oh
But
my.
what's the favorite purchase that you cannot live without when it comes to video?
Oh my gosh. That is the worst question
No, because you
ever.
have a lot.
Oh my,
Everything.
that's such a bad question.
I
Well,
know.
so I don't know. It's like, oh my gosh. Probably if I had to choose something,
Mm-hmm.
it would be my Stream Deck, maybe.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you have the big Stream Deck or the smaller Stream Deck?
I have two of them.
Okay. So then it's the Stream Deck
I've,
for you.
I've got the Excel and the Mini, so I've got the 6 and the 32. Yeah. So here's why I have that, because I'm running two computers in here. So
Okay.
one computer is kind of like my main work computer, and it also runs this stuff in the background.
Mm,
And my other computer is my streaming computer, because I don't want a whole lot of randoms on this computer, because it steals processing power.
yep.
So the Excel handles all of my streaming stuff, and the 6 button handles all of the other stuff. So they do different things, like my lights, turning my lights on and off
Ah, yep.
with my Stream Deck. you know
Mm-hmm.
so
Very
those
cool.
lights above, different applications I can launch from the Stream Deck. when
Mm-hmm.
I'm training. I mean, the things that I just launched just now, my dancing people or my clapping people or whatever. Um, I'm launching all of that via my Stream Deck. So one of the things that I really like. So let me actually see if I can do this. Um, see if I can grab this. Okay, so I'm opening up a presentation, and a lot of times when I'm presenting, I will use my iPad, and I use a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I've got a slide that comes up
Ah,
there.
yep.
I can bring that slide full screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can go back and forth. So I can make and continually have different views because we don't live in a static world, right? We live in a
Right.
world where things are constantly in motion and
Mm-hmm.
are moving. So, I do different things. Like sometimes I want a different shot. Hey, what's going
Mm.
on?
Love it. Love it.
So all of that type of stuff is launched right from the Stream Deck here. So
First of
that's
all,
yeah,
that's like advanced.
yeah.
So, for those of you who are watching who are super new, do not get overwhelmed by what RK3 is sharing right now.
You asked.
but but look, here's what
Yeah.
I do appreciate is that you're showing what is possible,
Yes. Yes.
because these things are possible, and these are possible without you being like this heavy hitter media producer,
Mhm.
right, who has this whole team of 100 people behind you.
Yep.
You're literally making all these things happen solo right now, at least in this moment,
Yep.
because you've set this thing up and you've put it together meticulously. So
Yeah.
I love that you're showing the possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
I can even show you the let me show you the actual Stream Deck itself so people can kind of see what we're talking about here, right?
Yes. Yes, he's got the
So,
big one. That's the
yeah.
XL.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
because
Excel, and then I've got the other, the
the baby
mini,
one.
right?
And
But
I've
yeah,
got
so I
the one
mean,
that's in between. I've got this one here.
the 15. Yeah, I started with
Yeah.
that one, and then I sent it back. I got a little bit of envy, and so like not enough buttons. Rawr, rawr, rawr,
I
rawr.
need more stuff. Squirrel, squirrel. Goodness. I love the
yeah,
possibilities. I love it. I love that
yeah,
there's opportunities no matter what level you're wanting to get to, you have
yeah,
the ability to be able to expand, and I love that you're
yeah,
showing that. How do
yeah,
people need to find you? If anyone wanted to look you up and to find your videos and to see where you are hanging out, what's
yeah.
the best link for me to share on screen?
Well, I'm everywhere as Robert Kennedy 3. If for social media,
Okay.
it's in Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Somebody's been encouraging me to get a TikTok account. I haven't gotten that to
I've
that
been
yet.
encouraged to.
Uh,
I'm not sure. Is it Robert
so
Kennedy with the number three or
the number three,
the B?
alphanumeric. Yep,
All right.
alphanumeric 3. But as far as videos go, just youtube.com/ Robert Kennedy 3. And you can find me there and you'll see my videos, etc. there about public speaking, storytelling, or what I call the techniques and the technologies of storytelling.
Do I
Yeah.
have this up correctly to make sure that everybody can
Yep.
find you? Okay,
That's me.
awesome. Because I
That's me.
know people are going to want to look you up and find out what other fancy dance moves you have and other cool sounds and stuff
Yeah.
that you're going to be showcasing. I love it, Robert.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending time with me and just sharing a little bit about your background and what you do and how you deliver your messaging through just creative
Yeah.
platforms in video.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're very welcome anytime.
Is there one more thing, anything that you want to leave people with a message about? Anybody who's new, who has been struggling or kind of saying, I'm going to hold back because I'm not sure that I'm ready? What would you tell
Mhm.
them?
You know what? If not now, when? Because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
people live on someday I'll, right? Someday I'll do this, someday I'll do that, someday I'll do
Yep.
the other thing, and we try to say, well, I'm not going to do it until we're ready.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, the world doesn't stop. Opportunities don't stop. The people who
That's
you're meant
right.
to reach, they don't stand in static motion, or they don't stand in place until
That's
you're
right.
ready to deliver your message or to save them. They're like, okay, I'm in pain. I'm hurting. I'm struggling. I'm trying to find a way out of this. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go over there and try to find somebody else. So your job, our job, is to share our stories so that we can transform lives and make a difference. So go for it. Start where you are, do whatever you need to, but do it now.
Love it. Thank you so much, Robert. And I
You're
know
very
we'll be
welcome.
finding you. Please be sure to follow him at Robert Kennedy 3 anywhere that you like to hang out. So YouTube, Facebook, you name it, he's there. He's on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to wrap it, sir.